Welcome to the PDX files. Each week we dive into the weird and the unexplained here in the Pacific Northwest and beyond. My name is Peej.
And I am Mac.
Mac, what are we talking about today?
Well, we're gonna get into again, kind of kind of Anglophile, going overseas a little bit to the UK on a really interesting story um, that is regarding UFOs, UAP, and there's some twists and turns in this one. So I'm just gonna let it play out, and then we're gonna discuss.
All right. As usual, I have not seen this video, so my responses will be authentic. Here we go.
The Cosford incident, you dubbed it the most compelling case of your career. Why was it the most compelling case of your career?
I think for a number of reasons. Firstly, it wasn't just a flash and then it's gone.
This is
This was a wave
Nick
of
Pope, a very
sightings
famous
that took place over a series of
UAP
period of
person.
about, I think, 8 hours. No, pardon me, 6 hours, approximately 6 hours. Secondly, it involved multiple different locations all around the UK, but many of the witnesses were police and military personnel, and in particular, two Air Force bases in the Midlands, Cosford and Shawbury. Cosford, for some reason, got to name this incident. I think I'd be a little annoyed if I was Shawbury, because actually the Shawbury sighting was a little bit more spectacular, but Cosford had more witnesses. So, and thinking back, I think I was probably the one that named it, so I maybe I slipped up there. So apologies, everyone at RAF Shawbury. But lots of the reports involved huge triangular-shaped craft, which seemed to be capable of moving from a very slow speed or a hover to very high Mach speeds in an instant with no sonic boom, which again it's one of what Lou Elizondo, who is a U.S. intelligence officer who's investigated UAP, he's dubbed this one of the 5 observables. This rapid acceleration with no sonic boom, and we saw that in the Cosford incident long before term the 5 observables was coined. So we had that. We had a patrol of Royal Air Force police officers saw it at RAF Cosford. The meteorological officer saw it at RAF Shawbury. He saw a narrow beam of light come down at the ground, tracking backwards and forwards. He heard an unpleasant low-frequency humming sound that he said he could feel reverberating through his body as well as hear it. I've heard that from some of the other witnesses.
I mean, if you just look at it on its face, you got expert and you got professional people again that are reporting on something that's pretty big. Lou Elizondo, a lot of our our viewers would probably know who he is, and we're going to probably get a dive into a little bit of that here in the not too distant future. But he was in charge of ATEP, kind of the precursor to Arrow. Again, kind of looking at UAPs and from that perspective. And again, if you look at um, a UAP who can that can go from 0 to however 1,000 miles an hour without creating a sonic boom, that is something that is not within our technology that we have right now. We just don't have that. It really creates something where you have to manipulate time and space and things around it. So, the level of the witnesses, the testimony, as you're going to see a little bit more as we go through this, it's one of the very underreported kind of incidents. And Nick Pope was in charge of a program who in the UK that looked into this kind of stuff for like 1993, and it was in the 90s that he did kind of this kind of thing. But we're talking about the same type of things: the triangle or a boomerang shaped UFO, UAP. This has been going on for a long time.
I definitely have never heard of the phrase 5 observables before.
Yeah, we're gonna do one on that.
Yeah, pardon me?
We're gonna do a little thing on that. Yeah.
Okay. So, but yeah, I think I never thought about that in terms of the sonic boom. Like even with one of the previous videos when we were talking about the sightings, the recent sightings in Oregon, um, I don't think there was any mention about like sonic boom from any of those
Correct. Yeah.
pilots. So again, that's interesting. All right. I'll definitely have to, yeah, I definitely want to do a deep dive on that at a future episode. So, all right, we'll continue here.
And this was, I mean, when I talked to this last witness that I'm talking about, he said to me the following morning when I interviewed him, he said, Nick, I've been in the Air Force 8 years. I see and hear fast jets, attack helicopters, whatever, almost every day. It's kind of like my job. He said, I've never seen anything like this before in my life. And it clearly unnerved him and unnerved a number of the other police and military witnesses. And there's a declassified file on it at the National Archives, which I opened, and so people can follow some of the story in there. And there've been a couple of TV documentaries about it. Really interesting case. And of course, there's not much middle ground with a sighting like that. We found a cluster of sightings at about 1:10 in the morning were attributable to the re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere of a Russian rocket. But there was one other really spooky thing about this case, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it at first. I realized that at the back of my mind while I was doing the investigation, I thought there's something odd about the date. Something, I couldn't quite figure it. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, after the investigation had wound down, after the diplomatic aspects of this had wound down, because we'd been talking to the US government about this.
Right. Yeah.
Firstly, to check that they weren't testing some sort of prototype aircraft, but secondly, because they were having sightings of their own, and they were asking us about our sightings. But when everything wound down, I realized what it was, and it was the fact that these sightings happened late on March 30th and in the early hours of March 31st, 1993. Well, on that exact same night, 3 years earlier, a very similar UFO had entered Belgian airspace, had been tracked on Belgian national radar and on the NATO integrated radar network. The Belgians had actually scrambled 2 F-16 fighters to intercept this craft. They'd locked onto it with their airborne radars. And yeah, as I say, it was only a little later that I realized, wow, it's the exact same night of the year, but 3 years on.
And whether or not the night has anything to do with it, and this is going to be another future episode. We're talking about the Belgian wave, because we're talking about here is what Nick is talking about, where there were a lot of these same types of UFOs in the 90s that have been taken very seriously by the Belgian military, the Belgian Air Force. And so to hear about that the same night, does it mean anything? Maybe not, but it's the same type of UFO that they're talking about. And that's where he said, well, it went a little bit long. I wanted to get him to, but they couldn't really find a good way to sort of cut it and get him to sort of like make his point. But he was making the, the case the entire way. And again, if you're listening to this or watching it and about the Belgian wave, then you're going to be able to connect the dots between the Cosford incident and what he's talking about here. Very, very almost exactly the same types of reports. And again, both taken very, very seriously by the particular military or intelligence branch of the UK, and as well as the as well as Belgium.
I think if an unidentified aerial phenomena elicits a military response,
it should. Yeah.
Pardon me?
It should. It should, right? I mean, we want to try it
and that's what I mean. I mean, it's serious enough. I don't know. It's unclear to me if that Belgian response, if the Belgian incident, actually, maybe he did say it. Where I think if they also checked with the U.S. and with the UK to make sure that nobody was
It
doing
wasn't,
military.
some weird tech thing that they were. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And to your point, well, actually, no, I don't know if you made this, but we're talking about the military that who are the people that are the ones who are observing this. So they're the
Yep.
ones who are normally trying to cover this up. So I mean, it's interesting that they themselves are like, what is going on here? And
Well, that's kind of the thing is like this didn't used to be covered up in other countries around the world. In fact, it's only been recently that they've kind of followed the Americans' way of doing things and covering this shit up. It's like very much more open in like South America, in Chile,
Mm,
and in countries like that, and in Europe, where they saw this wave and they've been taking it and monitoring it for years and years and years. If this was just a bunch of hoaxes, why would they put resources to this?
right,
Right? It
right.
doesn't make any sense.
And the date might be significant, I
It
mean,
could be. Yeah.
it could be. I mean, I think, far be it for us from us to understand alien technology and what's possible. I mean, they could be as precise as that, you know. I mean, I mean, if they can build the pyramids, just kidding.
Maybe.
All right,
Maybe.
let's continue.
What did that mean? We didn't know, but it was interesting. In all my defense career, I was taught don't believe in coincidences. Look for those join the dots.
Mm.
I agree with
Yes,
that.
it's an unbelievably compelling case. So all these years later now, what is the best guess for what was going on there? Or were you just unable to really come to any sort of assumption?
Really unknown. I mean, it's kind of like it's a binary thing, like a crime in a police file. It's either solved or it's not. If it's solved, it resolves itself into one of a number of different things: aircraft lights,
Yeah.
weather balloons, meteors, satellites, Chinese lanterns, hoax, psychological delusion, sensor error, whatever it might be.
Mm.
But if it's unknown, it's unknown. Might it be extraterrestrial? Yeah, it might. But we can't prove that. We don't have a definitive smoking gun. I know conspiracy theorists say that we're hiding these things in an Air Force hangar somewhere. If they are, I suspect that's in the United States. And
He's not right. I mean, he's not wrong.
No, he's 100% right. And I really appreciate what he just said there. It's like, you look at the most likely prosaic explanations for some of these things. That's where you want to go. That's what we do when we ghost hunt, right? We try to eliminate the possibilities first, and then what are we left with, right? And so then you have to sort of examine that at the same time. And in no scientific experiment is there any kind of absolute proof of anything. And I think that's the kind of the um it's a misconception of that theory, is that, oh yeah, well, we're 100% sure about this. Nobody is 100% sure about anything. It just doesn't exist. But you have to look, and now you can get to very close to 100% by looking at the evidence and try to repeat what happened if it's a scientific experiment. But the very least, all we can do as like observers is try to do the best we can at looking at the evidence itself, and not worry about people's opinions. Let's look at the facts. Has it happened before? Yes. Is it repeatable? Yes. Or do we have evidence of radar, visual? Do we have evidence of physical debris? Like those types of things. And I think that over time, I think people are going to see that we do have these kind of bits of evidence that we can kind of look at, and again, is it proof? No, it's kind of what Nick was just saying. We don't have absolute evidence. We don't have an alien on TV.
Right.
We don't, we don't have the evidence of a craft that we can show people
Right.
necessarily yet, right?
Yet. And I think definitely the nature of the people who have observed and are reporting on it, um, and the level of credibility that they provide is definitely, I think, that thing that increases the situation or the scenarios, whether it's compelling or not, right?
Yep.
And this is definitely pretty interesting so far because we're talking about, again, there's some similarities to a previous event, and the people who are observing are again the people who could respond to it, right? The military, they could absolutely
Yep.
take action on it, and they've got the means to do so. But so far, it's remaining an unsolved or as a mystery. It's kind of interesting.
Indeed.
All right, let's continue here. It looks like this is the last part.
That they didn't tell us Brits, but no, unknown means unknown.
The
Yeah,
US.
you can apply Occam's razor and say again, sure, it's more likely that it was a secret prototype aircraft, or drone than an extraterrestrial spacecraft, but we don't know that, and we obviously did check very carefully, even if you're not read into a specific like project. We know what we've got, and somebody can have a quiet word and say, look, can't read you into the program, but no need to look into that one, look the other way, old chap. And of course you would, and you could say, well, but not if it's Russian or Chinese. But again, and I can't go into too much details, but obviously through our intelligence operations, we've got a pretty good idea of what any adversary has, what the cutting edge of their technology is in terms of aerospace, for example.
Yeah, and I think that's the most interesting kind of case for. He's not saying aliens like it's aliens, kind of like the ancient aliens guy, whatever his name is, does kind of that meme. But he's saying aliens is what he's saying, I think, and because you do know, it's like, okay, are the Chinese or the Russians that much farther advanced than we are? No. We already know that because otherwise they would have used that against us already, right? So that's kind of the thing that I look at, and so and really because all these things have been seen all across the world, I think there's kind of a bit of a misconception that it only happens in the U.S. and that's, oh well, the U.S. is the one who's like jazzing up it for movies and all this. No, that's not true. It happens all over the world. These things are happening. We just don't know about it because we live in America. We don't get all this kind of information, right? And so the similarities between the responses and what we see even now on video and things that we've seen correlate very well to what that kind of story I was just talking about.
Yeah, it's definitely very compelling because again, to the types of people who are reporting on it, the way the incidents were banner by which the incidents were observed, the response to the incident, um,
Yep.
and and some, I know that he said something about don't believe in coincidences, but some of the coincidences that could be there, and I do appreciate that he did mention and that you just acknowledged as well, where it's like we have, well, the UK and the US and a lot of the other kind of friendlier countries do provide some sort of level of transparency in terms of what the technology that exists that they're capable of, either
Right.
outright providing that technology information on that technology, or we're finding out what the Brits could do, what India could do, or
Just giving a heads up. Yeah. Yeah.
but for the secretive countries like North Korea and China and USSR, I'm sorry, my bad, and Russia.
Wow.
That was a
That
1990s.
was awesome. Love it.
The governments can just maybe take an educated guess, not just from the reason that you stated in terms of if they've got that kind of technology, they would have used it. Who knows what reasons they would have to use it or not use
Yeah.
it. So it's almost like That's just one element of it. But we could extrapolate from our own, like the US can extrapolate from our own level of technology, what another country's level of technology could be, unless they're being assisted by freaking aliens, you know?
Oh
So,
yeah, or if they've reverse engineered it, they have a program of their own to like
right,
sort of make these things happen. And
right.
we've seen that on even on our own shores in 2024. They were gonna and we're gonna get into that eventually here pretty soon as well. But
Yeah.
essentially drone attacks on our eastern shore, and it's not just the first time it happened this year; it happened previously as well. So the fact that they can't explain that and they've not been able to explain it to me is impossible. That if it was just a technology that was a drone, you would know it.
Yeah.
But the fact that they can't explain it is very disturbing and has never been explained and has vanished from the news, even though it was all over the news, and is now it's gone again. It's just very, very strange.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyway, this is for another episode.
But anyway, so if you enjoyed this content, please give it a like and share it across your socials to help get the word out about our show. If you hadn't already done so, please subscribe. And on YouTube, hit that notification bell to make sure that you don't miss out on any new episodes. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.